the five steps thing is clearly the thing that if anybody knows about my music, it's because of that. And so that, like you said, was chosen to be the theme song for the show Intervention, which has literally been running for, I think it's like 25 years or something like that, like a really, really long time. And I was incredibly lucky to have them choose that to be the theme song.
This is Rob Ruckus.
Hey, this is Kate Clover.
Hey guys, it's Nick Collins here from The Effect and Better Strangers.
Hi, my name is Madeline Rose.
Hey, it's Ben McKelvey.
It's Tim Howard here from Mike and the Mechanics.
Hello, I'm Amanda Lehman.
I'm Billy Harvey.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Casey Sampson from the band Twist Stop.
Hey, it's Tony from Fastball.
Hello, everybody. My name is Isaiah Mitchell.
Hey, guys, it's Matt here from the White Lakes.
You're listening to Almost Famous Magazine.
Come join us for this interview. Check it out, Almost Famous Magazine.
Hey, everyone. Thank you and welcome back to The Hang. We appreciate you coming back for all of these great conversations we have with musicians, comedians, artists, and really getting a chance to learn about them, get into their head, and see them kind of for the people that they are, just like us. So we appreciate you coming back, as well as anyone who subscribes to the channel or shares it. Today, this is really interesting, and you'll learn as we kind of unfold it, because this is very similar to the last Scott that we had on in a couple of ways. And quite frankly, Scott not being the most common name out there, that we've already had Scott and Scott and Scott and Scott, I think we've got a trend going. So as you see on the screen, this is Scott Klass of the Davenports. His new album, actually the fifth Davenports album, you could have just said that, is coming out in, I think, January, right? And their latest single, The Annabelles of the World, will be out on November 15th. You might be familiar with the Davenports and might not even know it, okay, because of their song Five Steps. If you are a fan of A&E's Emmy-nominated series Intervention, they had that song on the soundtrack, in the background, part of the show. So you may be familiar with that. They're known for consistent critical acclaim for catchy and nuanced songcraft, smart narrative lyricisms. I really like the lyrics, and we'll talk a little about that when we get into some of the songs in the upcoming album. There have been comparisons drawn to Weezer, Ben Folds, Fountains of Wayne, which Scott also happens to play alongside Chris Collingwood in Look Park. And there's going to probably be a great story that comes out of all of this because of Look Park. So I think we'll get to that while we're going along. And for full disclosure, believe it or not, we've known each other. How embarrassing it is. We'll just say since our teens. Of
years.
Yeah, well, let's not use the number. I mean, we look great for 28. So, we hadn't seen each other for probably a lot of years until I think it was 27 or 2018, August or September, maybe October 2016. I was running around in Phoenix or in Scottsdale, Arizona at a show for the band Squeeze. And I had heard the name of the opening act, but I didn't know them. And I was going down below the facility to find Glenn to say hello. And I walked into this room and I'm like, Scott, what are you doing here? And he's like, Scott, what are you doing here? Because Scott was there as part of Look Park opening up. So we have a lot to catch up on. Scott, welcome to The Hang.
So great to be here, Scott. I appreciate talking to another Scott. I'm glad to be the 15th Scott that you've talked to over the past several weeks. It is not such a common name anymore. I feel like Scott is sort of an old school, like previous generation's popular name. You don't get many little babies coming out as Scotts these days.
No, but we age well and we're wise. So you know what? I'll be a Scott any day of the week. Plus, you stand out. Nowadays, you stand out in the crowd because there are fewer and fewer of us. So
Exactly.
Any chance to take the spotlight. We've known each other a long time, but I've never known this story that I want you to kind of express to everyone, and I'm looking forward to learn. Your musical journey started a long time ago. How did it start? Did you find music, or did music find you? And then what's that story that really got you into that passion and desire to do this professionally?
I think it was all supernatural from the time I was a little kid. Let's call it the age of 8, 9, 10, something like that. I remember my father and brother started taking guitar lessons together. My father was terrible. My brother ended up being really, really good. And they would leave these, like there was a book, they left it out, and it was just a basic intro to guitar kind of thing. And on the back, it had just chords and like where you put your fingers. And I literally just sort of like, I looked at that and put my fingers in the right place on the guitar. And then I started playing guitar. But the love of it, it wasn't, there was nothing I had to look for at all. It really did find me, particularly I think in the form of, I don't want to be the 10 billionth person to cite the Beatles as being a fundamental influence on my musical career, but that's what it is. It's like my brother Brian had all the Beatles records, all the LPs. We were growing up. I never had too much of a collection myself, but we would play them, and that's how I learned to love music. It's how I learned songcraft. It's how I learned guitar, because then there was like the complete Beatles, which every kid had. It was like that thick and had every single Beatles song in it. And I learned how to play them all, and like I fell in love, and it never stopped. So as time went on, going into high school, into college, like I just started playing in bands, and always had musical friends. And outside of the love of your family and friends, music was always the sort of fundamental, sort of foundational thing that I just sort of live and breathe all the time to this day.
That's cool. That's cool. It's funny. You own it and I own it, but that complete Beatles, I've got a copy sitting on the other side of the room over here on my piano to open up every now and then. So I totally know the book you're talking about.
Yeah, handy resource for anybody.
Yeah, that and was it a Mel Bay book that your dad left lying around? Because that's usually the book that people.
I forget. I don't remember what it was. It was one of the myriad basic, learn how to play guitar kinds of books. But it's funny because I feel like my guitar playing, some people might argue with this, but I would say I never became like a guitar, technically a guitar maven. Like I'm not a soloist or anything like that. Like I have the ability to do some stuff like that, but I just think about those basic guitar chords, and it's kind of still the same. It's like the songs I'm writing today. Yes, there are more complexities for sure, but a lot of it is still tied to sort of the basic sort of foundational stuff that allows you to be able to write songs and relay songs and ideas without getting too technical. It's just like it was never really my thing. And I would say the same thing about the recording process. I've had other people help me record. I've been in studios before. This current record was a record I did at home. It was the first record I did at home. But previously, somebody else was sort of doing all the engineering stuff. And I just never had a reason to learn the tech or be a gearhead or anything like that. So I never did. So it was an interesting process to kind of do it myself for this record.
Oh, cool. We'll jump into that when we talk about some of the songs. I'm kind of curious. You go through high school and college. You got to love the music. At what point do you go, I'm gonna really think about this professionally in that journey up to founding the Davenports?
I think it was. It kind of just always existed there. Like every little kid, or some kids have dreams of being, I don't know, firefighters or sports figures or whatever. I always dreamed of being a rock star. So the jury's still out on that, but it was always there, and like I said before, the creation of music and the playing never ever stopped. So it just seemed perfectly natural as I went through college to just sort of keep doing it. There was never sort of this firm decision to say, okay, this is it, do or die, music. There was always a sense that I'm going to give it a shot, and I'm going to, move to, I moved to New York after a while, going way back after doing a few things after college. I moved back to New York, but there was some understanding that I was doing that because I could meet people, play with people, gig, and just sort of continue doing all that. So it was, there was not some firm line in the sand. It was just perfectly natural to just keep playing. I mean, the songwriting part happened actually, I would say, a little bit later. I mean, it wasn't until maybe the late '90s that I felt like I even had the ability to write a song. I was always good at playing songs and picking up songs, and I have good ears, so I could just hear stuff and play it. And it was mostly sort of like it stayed in the realm of covers until, yeah, probably the late '90s when something changed where I just sort of started writing and I was like, okay, some of this actually isn't bad. And then I connected with other people and started recording, towards the, right before the turn of the century.
Okay. So you land on deciding you're going to start this project called the Davenports. My first burning question is, how do you land on the name the Davenports? Like, where did you get that from? How? Because you could have named it anything, and you chose that.
Yeah. I wish there were like an awesome story about this. I think that part of it was I had two great aunties who always referred to a couch as a Davenport. So, I mean, some people know that it's kind of an antiquated term for a couch, a Davenport. And I think there was just something, ever since I was a kid, there was something that just, I liked the word. I mean, it had sort of almost like an Anglo sophistication or something like that, I just appreciated. And so when it came time to name this project, I don't know, that's just like the first thing that came into my head. There were other bands that came before that with friends through the years so it didn't start with the Davenports, but that, like, when it became just my project that I was going to create and write for and sort of own. I liked the word, and I also like by putting the article before it, like the something or other, very much in the spirit of like the pop bands that we all love, like the Beatles, or like I mean, I'll just use them again, but that kind of spirit just didn't make sense at the time, so that's kind of what stuck. The funny thing about it was, there is this assumption for the people who know about the band is that it's a band, and it kind of never really was a firm band in the sense that it was a core group of people who were all writing together and contributing together and formulating stuff together. It's really kind of my project, so it's similar, like when you think of like Eels or something like that. It's like there's one guy who's sort of running the show, even though it suggests like a whole band. But it's always really been my project. That's not to say that there haven't been certain people who have hung with it for years and years and years. I mean, I did have a core set of people who hung with it for 15 years maybe. And then certain players, some of whom you probably know, like Dan Miller. I think you might have remembered him from Upstate. He's played with, like, he and I played together in high school and college too. And he's always certainly guested on I think maybe all of my records on guitar and piano. So certain people have been a part of it, but it's more like this sort of rotating posse of different musicians that come in and help me make the music.
It's interesting. I've spoken to a number of musicians lately, and it's kind of the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. Because partially the change in the music business, you have to have multiple groups to play with. You have to have, like, that's how you make some money, right? You're playing out with 3 or 4 different bands, or you're on 3 or 4 different recordings that you get a piece of the action. So mm-hmm. it's really kind of a sign of the times in a way, and an evolution in music. Before we get into the new album, for those who are unfamiliar with your previous 4, if they were to go back and listen to those, what are a few tracks or the album specifically that you think are some of the highlights that they should kind of look out for?
Well, I think, like you mentioned at the top, the 5 steps thing is clearly the thing that if anybody knows about my music, it's because of that. And so that, like you said, was chosen to be the theme song for the show Intervention, which has literally been running for, I think it's like 25 years or something like that, like a really, really long time. And I was incredibly lucky to have them choose that to be the theme song. It didn't play. I've never played at the beginning. I always played at the end. So people know that, and so people gravitate towards that. So that's on the first record. I mean, the first record was a long time ago. I felt like me and the producer that I've been working with for a long time, this guy Charles Newman of Mother West, we technically, I don't think it's a great sounding record, but the irony of that is that is still. Not only was that sort of a primitive, I think, in the recording process of the whole record, but that one song is sort of a funny story. It was the only song that was not done in a studio. That song was recorded on a mini disc recorder on my friend Tim Cohan's bed. He lived in the West Village and he had an MD recorder that literally recorded to mini discs. I don't know if you remember that technology or not. Mm-hmm. And I was literally just sitting on the bed and he wanted to try recording it. And so we did that. And that became the same song that we used on the record. So total hack together. I mean, you can even hear it in the song. It's, the fidelity is not great. And there's static or whatever, but the show producers obviously didn't give a crap, and, it was good enough for the show. And so they used it anyway. So anyway, that's that. And then, it's kind of hard to say, what else I would draw people to. I think that, the last full record I did was called "Don't Be Mad at Me." That was from a couple years ago, and there's the title track on that, a song called "Don't Be Mad at Me," is another one I think that a lot of people gravitate to. It's sort of it's almost like this somewhat baroque, but then ends up being kind of an epic, big guitar solo rock song. But it's it's like piano and strings and a lot of harmonies, and it's another one that I'm super proud of. I mean, listen, I'm proud of some of it. I'm not so proud of other parts. It runs the gamut, but I could call those two out as places to start.
Awesome. Now I'll say I was listening to Cuts Off, the new album, earlier. Really like it. It's got a good feel to it. It feels to me one of those, and in my opinion, like it matters. When you listen to a sequence of songs and they're put together with a lot of intention, mm-hmm. you can feel that, I just can't pull one out at a time. And it feels like that. It feels very intentional. So that's kind of my first pass at it. You could have just said that. It sounds a bit like a bit of an interpersonal relationship song. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm looking to you to tell me the story. Where'd the inspiration from that come from? And what is that song? What's that song to mean to others?
So actually what's interesting about that song is there's almost there's a companion song to it on the record. So there's another song called I Am Lying, which is, it's basically the same scenario just told from two different perspectives. So it's not necessarily autobiographical. I mean, obviously there are little bits that we pull from our lives, but a lot of what's on this record is storytelling based on people that I know, stories that I've heard. Some of it from my own as well. But the scenario there is basically just a couple that go through this sort of elusive behavior. They try to sort of just not they can't be straight with each other because they feel like they're protecting themselves, they're protecting the other person, when ultimately they're probably just sort of creating a bigger problem than needs to exist. So you could have just said that it's essentially that. I think the one part of the relationship in the song is effectively saying, I see you going through all these motions and you're hiding shit, and you, for what you did, which is probably nothing, you really don't have to do that, but you're giving me more reason to flip out because you're running into the bathroom and you're taking a shower and you're doing these things that you don't necessarily need to do. So it's kind of about that dynamic. And then I Am Lying, the other song, is told from the other partner's perspective, which is just, that person saying, I just feel like I should do this right now because it's going to be easier. And whether or not that's actually true is up to the listener.
No, that's really interesting, because I mean, if you got one song about someone escaping to the bathroom to take a shower or whatever, escaping from a topic or something, it's got to be interesting to be inside their head going, I'm running into the shower now. So, I got to get away. The shower's the closest room I can find, right? Exactly. I think we've all been there in those situations, right. In relationships.
Honey, why are you still in the bathroom? It's been 25 minutes. You're like, no, I'm good.
Some people are the most creative there. So if that's the room that works for you. Now I was listening to the Annabellas of the world, and I started to kind of fall into like, wait a minute, I think this has happened to me before. I typically have this, be a duck, let it wash off my back kind of attitude about stuff. But I think we're all susceptible at times to kind of things just kind of getting, they get lodged in a place a little too long. Am I kind of picking up the right vibe on that song? What was your intention with that story?
I think it's really just about, I won't say there are two kinds of people in the world, but it does focus on these two kinds of people. One of whom is just lets shit get to them, right? And there is definitely some of me in that too. Like instead of just letting shit roll off and rolling with it, little things can sort of creep in, like you're saying, and lodge themselves there and affect your behavior and depress you or whatever, and send you off into your corner. And there's that kind of person who in the song is envious of this other kind of person who does at least seem to be the kind of person. This is the Annabellas, that type who can just let it go, and instead of getting troubled by it, that character sort of turns it into her own fun, and goes out and like the people that might be annoying her at a given moment, she ends up just sort of making fun of, and maybe going out and drinking a little bit. And like, there's a lot of sort of funny wordplay in that song that people will hear. There's even some stuff that might give it an explicit rating. I don't know. Yeah, so it's about those two types. And I think the narrator wanting to be more like the person who doesn't get so bent out of shape, but has a hard time doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing how we, sometimes we can get really stuck trying to be the other person because we think that's better than who we are in our way. Right. So I think,
the answer is pretty typically just to chill out and try not to think about it so much and just, focus on what's in front of you. But yeah. But the other thing that's interesting about that song is that it really just started from the title. Like sometimes there are phrases out there in the world that you've heard a million times, you've said a million times. And there's something about the Scotts of the world or the berries of the world or whatever. I've always kind of liked that expression and like all that it sort of like can entail. Like this is a type of person. And then you look into what that type is and what they represent and what they're like. And so I always wanted to write a song with that title. And, just sort of, you find your sort of melodic phrasing and you fit it in appropriately. And so it started as that. And then I sort of retrofitted the story to that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to pick one more. And now that I've gotten a little bit of, gotten to know the others, I think I see where you're going, because I'm not going to bother you. Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you talk about those interpersonal relationship stories and stuff like that, I didn't get too deep in the lyrics, but what I got was I start listening to them, like, it's got a vibe to it. It's got a feel. And I'm like, I love it when I can hear a song and go, it's an artist giving their own representation of their music, but yet there's a hint of this. It's like tasting a wine or something where you can a hint of this flavor or that flavor. And I felt a little Brian Wilson in there. Maybe it was some of the chord phrasing. Tell us what like the building process of that song harmonically was, as well as the story behind it.
Yeah, I think that one definitely started with the music, and there was a very deliberate desire to write a song that had like a 3-part harmony all the way through, which I had never done before. So I think I probably just, came up with the basic melody and the chord arrangement and stuff like that. So I think merely by deciding that you're going to write a song that has 3-part harmony the whole way through, you're going to inevitably get the comparisons to the Beach Boys, which it has. And I'm a huge fan. Pet Sounds is also fundamental in my upbringing and music and all that. So yeah, it started like that. And then, typically it's like, because of the way it sort of came about musically, it felt sad. It feels like sort of a sad song, sort of a melancholy song. And so then the story emerged of again, types of people, the type of person who isn't leading a particularly happy life and wants to, in their heart of hearts, maybe speak up and try to change things, but just can't. In this particular case, this was based on people that I know, people that I've known, couples that I've known, where there might be one entity, typically the man, who is a domineering force in the relationship, and maybe a woman who was too, just acquiesced too much to that, just was too sort of subservient to that, and wouldn't speak up for themselves. And when I've seen that with people I know, it's a hard thing to watch, especially when you care about the people that are involved. So that's what it became. It became a story sung from the perspective of the woman in this case. We also did I don't know if you saw, there's a video for this song that we did a couple of years ago. Some of these songs, just to be clear, were released as singles. 3 songs were released as singles over the past couple of years. So this whole record has been sort of mounting up to this point. This was the first one that was released. I think it was even like 2022, I want to say. But we did a video with the actress Rebecca Kreskoff, who was on that show Hung, and she was on Mad Men, and she's also just talking about past relations, like you and I have a past. She was a friend of mine from college. We both went to Brandeis University together. So we got to use. She was generous enough to lend her acting talents to this and her home. She has this glorious sort of mansion-like home on the Jersey Shore. So we filmed it there, and I urge you to watch it because it's a very cool video. But that became the whole thing, and so it profiles her just sort of living her lonely life, and not just getting enough love from the people around her.
Oh, wow, that's a great story, and I will absolutely check that out. I didn't know it was released back then. Yeah. I know I'm looking forward to all the success that you should have with this album. It's really amazing and great, and you can certainly feel the textures of the influences that you've brought up, and I'm sure there are others that have gone into it. So when is that coming out so that people can get their hands on it?
It is January. If the 31st is a Friday, which I believe it is, January 31st will be the full record. So like you said, there's one more single that's coming out in a couple of weeks on the 15th, which is the Annabelles of the World, like we just talked about. And then full record, that'll be the end of the singles for now, and then full record in January. All
right. Well, look, everybody, the holidays are coming. Don't spend all your money. Save some of it to pick up the copy of the new Davenports.
Save some for the winter doldrums.
Exactly. And look, if you live in the North and you're stuck in the snow, you're going to want to play this over and over again. Keep it on repeat all winter, but go out and buy it so that you can help support Scott in his endeavors. I'm always interested in life in general, and you sing a lot about life. You write a lot. Life is a series of small bets to add up to large victories, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm always curious, like, what's a small bet you made career-wise in music that really paid off, maybe as well or better than you thought it could have? And then on the other end of that, one that you made that it went wrong. It didn't work out the way you chose it to, or you planned it to, but you either rolled with it, which some people can and can't do, or you found another way to bring some success to it.
It's a great question. I think that I would say so. I'll put it in terms of that. The other band that you mentioned that I play in, this band Look Park, which is led by Chris Collingwood, who is Fountains of Wayne, the one of the 2 leaders of Fountains of Wayne. He and I knew each other back in going back into the 90s. We all kind of lived in New York City, in the West Village. Him and his musical partner, Adam Schlesinger, lived there as well. And I got to know them then, but then they went ahead and did Fountains of Wayne. And then, I stayed in touch with Chris through the years. Flash forward to 2015, 2016, Chris put out his first solo project, which was called Look Park. And fantastic record. Mitchell Froom produced it, like really, really great record. And he had contacted me when he wanted to play out a little bit and do some shows. So he contacted me to help him because we had done a little stuff pre-Fountains of Wayne back in the 90s, just me and him doing some duo stuff. And there was a little project called Small Town Criers for a while. That was still his stuff, but I helped him out with that. So I started working with him again, or like the 2015, 2016 time. We did some shows, and then he got an offer. Well, he wanted to start touring more formally. So there was an option to go to do Fuji Rock in Japan, which came up first. And then in the wake of that, to go out on tour with Squeeze, like we talked about, and open up for Squeeze. So it came at a time in my life when I don't think I was working. We had one kid who was still like about to go to high school, our younger kid. And if anyone knows anything about the New York City high school system, it's a shit show, and there's a lot of pressure, and it was just a very sort of a trying time. So between not working at the time and facing that situation, I was sort of I was kind of needed here. But when Chris offered this thing, it was just, and it's like The Godfather, like an offer I couldn't refuse. I couldn't. I mean, going to Japan, like playing with Chris. I mean, he's like, I love playing with him. I always have. But Squeeze they were my heroes, like when I was a child. So the option to do that, I had to talk to my family and be like, I know you're not going to like this, but I hope you will one day understand this is a huge once in a lifetime opportunity. And some people were not happy about it, and it was not responsible, and it was definitely a risk. But I took it, and forget about like where we are from where we sit right now. The experience of doing that was just one of the best things I've ever done in my whole life. Because I'm just playing with great musicians like Chris. There's also Philip Price, who has his own band called Winter Pills in Northampton. And then the other players that we played with, there was, when we went to Japan, it was a band of 5. We just went there for 4 days and did that one festival and then came back. But the tour was just a trio, Chris, obviously in lead, and then me and Philip backing him up. And just playing with those guys is sheer joy. Talk about harmonies. It's like, it's a really harmony focused project. So it was just amazing. That, and then, playing with the Squeeze guys, Tilbrook was always a hero. So hanging out with him, we played pool together. We hung out backstage. I mean, there were times when we would be warming up a little bit and Glenn would come by and just stop and listen to us warming up. And I'd be like, what's happening right now? It was like a real out of body experience. So it was just sheer joy. And we did that. There was a couple month tour that came out of that. And then right around COVID time, we did some more shows with them as well, right around COVID time, but it was just a gift. And so I could never say that I regretted that risky decision.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, look, we grew up at the same time, and to me, Squeeze, and this may sound weird, but I had this aunt who lived in the Catskills, and I always remember from the time I was a kid, the smell of the basement. For some reason, it had this musky smell to it, but it was always comfortable. Mm-hmm. And Squeeze has always been like comfort food. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's accessible to anyone, and they're the best of craftsmen at what they do. And for them to be doing it now, and they're out on tour, the 50th anniversary, I just photographed them actually here in Dallas recently. To have that kind of longevity is amazing. So that's a great experience getting to tour with them like that.
Oh yeah. No, 100%. And not just Glenn, by the way, like the whole band. We made friends with Simon, the drummer, is like, those guys. I mean, they're amazing. And we got to meet a lot of other people as, collateral to that. Some other celebrities and people like that. So it was great.
Yeah. If you could have the opportunity to go into a studio with one other musician and have a day to be creative together, could be a song, could be an album, it could be just lyrics. who's the one person that if you had a chance to get together with and savor that kind of time, who would it be?
I mean, I think that the answer probably changes with depending on the time period that you're in, because I could always go back to the classics or whatever. But I mean, I don't know. That's kind of boring to me. I'm going through a stage right now where I'm listening to newer artists, which I think is great for people of our age. You do get a lot of people who are really stuck in the old stuff. And don't get me wrong, I love the old stuff for sure. But one songwriter that I'm really fixated on these days is Madison Cunningham. I hope you know her stuff. She's getting more and more huge as the days go on. And she's like, there's some loose connections to this. I think she was originally discovered by this guy Mike Viola, who you may or may not know from that band Candy Butchers. Mike was actually, and this gets a little complex, but the reason I know Chris Collingwood was because of Mike. We met at a Mike show in the 90s. There was a place called The Cooler in the West Village. And Chris and I were just on the bathroom line at this Mike Viola show, and we just started talking, and that's how we met, literally. But Mike is a fantastic singer-songwriter too. If you haven't listened to him, I strongly urge you to. And he became one of those guys that we all listened to a lot, and some of us played with him. We did shows with him, and the drummer for the Candy Butchers, Todd Falsham, played on my first record. So there was this whole sort of weird, incestuous musician thing. But I think he originally signed Madison, if I'm not mistaken. But she is just this perfect combination of like really interesting writing, like nothing cookie cutter about it at all, like complex but super accessible, like striking melodies, like really deep lyrical content. Technically proficient. She's a great like guitar player, a great musician. And gladly she's really being recognized for it right now. But I feel like from where I sit right now, I would love to work with her. She's just a great musician, so that would be one answer for sure.
Cool. Yeah, no, I'm all about keeping open to what people are doing in music these days. There are a whole ton of bands that I'm loving right now, and I love the fact you brought up a bathroom line story. Because some of the greatest experiences of bumping into people, meeting people, whatever, involve a bathroom for whatever reason. It could be a cosmic center of gravity. I don't know. But first time I met Ben Folds was in a men's room in San Antonio. Oh, so nice. It was it's like you never know who you're going to meet in the men's room. So
you didn't pee on him or anything, did you?
No. That didn't happen. But it was definitely an interesting first meeting. So plus they make great stories, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned the Beatles, you mentioned the Beach Boys. Who are some of the musical influences that have really stuck with you that you've learned something from, that you've molded into your sound or your style within the songs that you write? Like who are some of the people that had that just you sit there running and go, wait a minute, this is Brian Wilson, or hey, wait a minute, because you don't want to be too much you want to add your own flavor, but as an homage to that influence, who are some of those?
I think, it's interesting because when I first started writing and recording, everything I was doing, most of what I was doing is really hovering towards that, what I call like the Beatle derivatives, it gets sometimes described as power pop, which is an expression that I don't like very much. For reasons I won't go into right now, but that was sort of the first influence, and I think that community, I think, was the first one to gravitate towards the Davenports because it had that thing and all the trappings of like that kind of pop music. But I think there's also like another whole component to this, if you want to talk through the deep foundational stuff, which to me is more the singer-songwriter stuff. So like Jackson Browne is something that just like hangs with me for life. When I had COVID back in 2020, and there was one period of like 2 or 3 days where I really felt like, holy shit, this is not going well, and I have a high fever, and I keep seeing the news about how people are dying, and I was like really panicked, the thing that calmed me down was putting on Jackson Browne, right? It's like really, as a listener, I love it. And I feel like just stylistically, that whole scene, him, like the LA scene, the Laurel Canyon scene, Joni, Warren Zevon, like all of those guys, I think really tapped into that other side of me. And I think that this new record, while some of the first things we've put out have been a little bit more poppy, there's a whole component of this record that's much more singer-songwritery. There's a few ballads, and I think it comes from that. I think it really comes from that. It's sort of deeply ingrained, and like literally every time I sit down with the guitar, I'm either playing like a Jackson Browne song or like a Ron Sexsmith song or something like that. But something of that ilk is just where my hands and my mind and my voice go automatically. So huge influence there. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, for full disclosure, we spent some summers, and there was someone with an acoustic guitar and that kind of songbook, right? Those singer-songwriter songs. So we certainly definitely had influences to find that within our soul during those periods. Yeah. One thing that I always try to do with these conversations. First and foremost, everyone who watches these knows we get to this point, and what am I doing? Go out and buy the Davenports music. It's nice it's nice to discover it somewhere, but support artists. Art is not free. Art comes at a price. It's time and effort and thoughtfulness and all those great things. So go buy the past catalog, buy the new album, support Scott so that it can be a 6th album. And I think it's important also, for us to think about other artists, right? Think about this world where, if you go back 25, 30 years, we didn't have access to so many people who were at home in their bedroom or whatever, making music. Mm-hmm. And now you've got music all over the place. Who are 3 artists that are, currently, they could be new or they could be older, that you're kind of like, it's your rotation right now and you're really digging them? Who are 3 of them, and for what reasons?
So interestingly, I would say, again, it does go in waves, and I go through phases with different people. Like I would say, if you were to ask me this question a year ago, I would say of Montreal. I was into sort of the groovy, quirky thing, and there's some evidence of that on the record. If you were to ask me 6 months ago, I would say this guy Andy Schauf, who's do you know Andy Schauf? Mm-hmm. Oh, you should listen to him too. Like, fantastic singer-songwriter. And I was obsessed with that. I think right now, interestingly, it's all women. So I mentioned Madison Cunningham, so I'm a little obsessed with her right now. Kate LeBon, I hope you've heard. She's also just a super interesting writer and different. Like I really try to gravitate towards people that aren't so samey, because there is so much Me Tooism out there in music right now, and a lot, sadly, I won't be the first person to suggest that most of what's at the top of the pops is stuff that you've heard in various forms in the past. So I'm gravitating towards people that don't sound like anybody else. I don't think Madison sounds like anybody else. Kate LeBon, Sam Phillips, I've loved for years and years and years and years, and she's still absolutely in the rotation. And anybody who knows her work knows very well how unique it is. Some of that's the writing itself, but some of it is just her voice itself. I mean, if you know her, you hear that voice and you're like, cannot be anybody else in the world. That's just Sam Phillips. That rich, deep, resonant, reedy kind of thing. So she's always there as well. And I think I'm adding a 4th now, but I would also say I'm a little obsessed with Laura Marling right now. So another very, very unique writer, a unique vocal style, a fantastic, technically a great guitar player, musician. She's just put out a new record a week ago, Laura Marling. Those are my obsessions right now, for sure.
Cool. Yeah. I'm always trying to find the uniqueness in music. I think I agree with you. That's one thing there's a little bit of that missing, right? Like there's a lot of vanilla these days and not a lot of Neapolitan. And I gravitate to things that, wait a minute, they hit my ear and I'm like, wait a minute, that's different, right? We've had on this gentleman from Germany, Jack McBannon, and I've known him for a few years and I begged him to sing in English and do an album in English. And when you listen to his voice, you're like, can't remember hearing a voice like that on American radio before, right?
Yeah.
I'm going through a big like punk rebirth. I went to Punk Rock Bowling Weekend and some of these acts, and you talk about females who are leading the way. Kate Clover is just incredible, and she's so intricately thoughtful in every piece of the production, down from the recording to the music video, that you can feel her passion for it. So there's so many artists there. And then there are artists that you go, wait a minute. Again, it sounds familiar. It sounds comfortable, but wait a minute. I can tell where it came from, but wow, did they put their own spin on it, right? Yeah. Like if you haven't heard Kid Capiche, it's like the energy and power of the Clash with the English sensibility lyrics of Madness mixed together. Yeah. Super cool. So I'm with you there.
That's sometimes better. The people who can take it to a different place. I for a long time, we're going back a ways, but I always thought a band like XTC was kind of taking that foundational thing, but really taking it to their own space, and which is why that's like another band that I always gravitated towards. I know you love them too. And Squeeze, for that matter. I mean, like hell, like they were taking that foundation, but completely making it their own. No one else sounded like that band.
No, and think about it. Their newest album that'll come out next week are songs they wrote 50 years ago and never recorded. I mean, that's crazy. Yeah, the whole thing about the 50th anniversary, they're doing 2 albums. One is all brand new material, like fresh and new, but there's one where they're going back and they're saying, wait a minute, we worked on this. We put it aside because they're 2 of the most prolific songwriters of our time, volume-wise. And they're doing an entire album of those songs that have never been given proper treatment before.
Wow, I actually did not realize that. I'm happy to hear that.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait. I mean, that's, to be able to stand the test of time that way. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely know exactly where you're coming from. And we could probably spend the next hour or so geeking out on that and just getting into the nuances musically. Before we get going, though, what are some things that you would like people, like when you wrote this album over time and you brought these songs together in a certain way, there's some intention in that, right? Mm-hmm. Is there something that you're hoping that people take away when they listen to the new album? Is there something that you hope they get out of it?
I mean, I think when someone's a writer, you want people to pay attention. And I think it's kind of related to what we just talked about in pop music. What are the things that people gravitate towards? Sometimes it's just that the surface hook that, just sort of locks them in. And it doesn't, I know people who don't give a shit about the words, and in some pop music, they don't have to give a shit about the words because the words are silly. They're just serving the song. And that's great for what that is. What I'm going to be happy with is when people actually just sort of sit and listen and pay attention to the words. I mean, the words are always very important to me. I spend a long time laboring over these things. I'm not one of those writers who just barfs stuff out left and right, which is why, yes, this is my 5th record, but it's taken a long time to get 5 records out. So the most I can ask is that it doesn't need to be 1 million people, but it like some small portion of the population sits and listens and just gets something out of what the song is trying to say, and it makes them feel a certain way, it makes them think a certain way. That's really all I can ask for.
Awesome. Well, hey, be honest, we could probably also spend a lot of time going back in the time machine and talk about old friends, but that's for another day and not necessarily this audience, because we'll bore them to tears. But everybody, look, you could have just said that is coming out in late January. Is it available for pre-order now?
The single's available for pre-order. So I think once we get by that, so probably by sometime in early December, it'll be available for pre-order. So yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Order this album for the holidays. Get it at dessert in January. So Scott, it's been great catching up to you. Thank you everybody for hanging with us through this. And I look forward to our next hang with you never know who may end up with us here on the Hang with Almost Famous Magazine. So keep your subscription, tell your friends. And we look forward to a lot of critical success for Scott's new album coming out in January. So Scott, it's been great. Good to talk to you.
You too, Scott. Talk soon. Thanks, buddy.